Python review today. But before we get too far into it, in preparation for the next section, which is going to be like website development, we're going to be needing some sort of text editor or like a code editor. So if you already have one downloaded, like VS Code, that's perfectly fine. If you have like another one that you're comfortable with using, that's also perfectly fine. But if you don't have a text editor or a code editor, you want to probably download VS Code, would recommend. So go to this link, send it in the chat. And then after you go to this link, you select the one you want. So I'm assuming most of you guys are on Windows or Mac. I'm on Windows, so to demonstrate, I'm just gonna click this button, and then it'll download. Then you click save, right? And it's pretty quick. And after it downloads, you can open up the exe. And it gives you like this license agreement. So you just click I accept, you click next, and then it just asks you for some other stuff, but you can just click next through all of it and then click finish. If you have any questions about that stuff that I just showed, like this VS Code thing, you can always let us know. If you can't download it for some sort of reason, you could also let us know, or that's also fine, but you might not be able to keep up as well as if you had it. And I think I'm gonna stop sharing now. And actually, really quickly, this is the schedule as usual. It's just today's the 19th. We don't have a meeting next week. We have a meeting on the 2nd. It's pretty standard, and that's really all we got for announcements this week.
Okay, so I think Joshua is gonna screen share and then go over the Python cheat sheet, and then you guys will work on like a small project after that.
First of all, remember when you do VS Code, you want to remember to actually install the Python from the marketplace. Um, and so quick note, I actually hang on. But if you don't have that set up, you can also use an online compiler for now. So I'll be using that one. So since probably most of you guys are familiar with the VS Code, and we're trying the online compiler for people who don't have VS Code installed. So remember, first of all, for Python, all Python files have an extension py at the very end. So if you look at the here, it says main.py. If it doesn't say py, then it's not a Python. The computer won't recognize it as a Python file. It will recognize it as a text file or a Java file, depending on what extension it has. Next of all, we have comments. So if you see here, we already have this part in green. This is a multi-line comment. Multi-line comments are indicated with these three kind of apostrophe symbols, and that will create a multi-line comment. A single line comment is using a hashtag. So hashtag this is a comment. This also creates another comment. Comments are basically lines that the compiler will ignore. Everything you type here, only you will be able to see. It won't affect your program anyway. You can put it anywhere you want. And this is basically mostly used to organize your code and to remind yourself of what each statement does. So instead of trying to figure out what each line does, you can leave a comment and just tell you directly, yeah, this prints out hello world, or this creates, I don't know, a soccer match or something. So comments are useful to keep your code organized and things like that. Next, we have print statements. So print statements, it just outputs something into the terminal. So if we run this one, prints hello world. You see hello world gets printed down here. And yeah, so print statement just outputs in there. And every time you have a print statement, it creates a new line. So if we do another print statement, you'll see it creates a new line. So every time you type print, it makes a new line. There are ways to put them on the same line, but then that's a bit more advanced, and we'll ignore that for now. Next up, we have variables. Variables, if you recall, they store values in them. And in Python, you don't actually need to specify what type of variable it is. So you just straight up put x equals 5, and that will store the number 5 in the variable. Printing x will give you the number 5 back. So that's how you call back a variable, by using the name you assigned the variable to. And then string, the variable types. Next up, we have variable types. So the most basic types we have are integers, which is just an integer with a number without a decimal point. We also have double or float, which is a decimal value, so like 5.1. And then next of all, another common one is string. And string, it's marked indicated by either an apostrophe or quotation marks. And string is a collection of characters. So if we recall, character is one symbol. So like the letter H, the letter E, those are characters. A string is a collection of letters. So the word hello is one. You can have numbers inside a string, but it won't recognize it as a number. It will recognize it as a character or a string of characters instead. Next up, we have Boolean. So Boolean stores true, false values like that. And it's basically a flag. It's either on or off, true or false, 1 or 0. And that's what a Boolean is for. And it's used commonly to create flags to indicate whether something is true or something is false. And the reason people use it instead of numbers is because of it's very quick to use. It takes less storage and than actual numbers and strings, since they only need to hold 2 values, either true or false. So that makes it very easy to use and run. Yeah. So these are the basic types of variables you will use during programming Python. And so yeah, this is just a refresher. So I'm going to be going pretty fast. Next up, we have input. So what input does, this little function here, it will wait for the user to type something into the terminal over here. So if oftentimes you assign it to a variable so you can store whatever they type for later use. And if we want to output whatever they type, you can just print it out. So let's say we type hello, it will spit back hello again since you're printing X. So whatever you type gets stored in variables. You can use the variable to do other things in the future. Or, you can do some arithmetic if you type in a number. Oh, wait. Oh, and you know what? We'll just move on. I'll try and be quick here. So yeah, you can use that to do things like that. Next up, we have if statements. If statements are conditionals. It checks whether something is true or not. So if, and I have a conditional here. And after the if statement, you always have a colon. And if you hit enter, it'll automatically tab for you. And that everything that's tabbed. So Java, if you notice, they use braces to separate out different blocks of code. Python, they use indentations. So the if conditional, everything that's indented after the if statement will be inside that block. So if the conditional is true, then the things here run. So maybe we do print true. And to exit out of that certain block of code, you just gotta untab. You can also use elif. Elif basically is an else if. So if the first one's false, then it checks whatever the second one is. So the second one will be conditional too. So let's write down an actual conditional. Let's say if 1 equals 1. And actually, so as you can see, it checks the first one whether it's true or not. So 1 does not equal 2. So skip this chunk and move on to the next statement, elif. And then it checks whether 1 equals 1. And it does. So then it prints out 2 is true. And then the final one for this set of code will be else. So else will catch everything. If everything above it is false, it'll print or it'll run whatever is down here. So let's say we change this to 1 equals 3. And if we run it, it'll check 1 equals 2 is false, it'll move on. 1 equals 3 is also false, it moves on. And else, it catches it. and outputs false. So this kind of thing is just chains down. It checks from top one, down the middle, and so forth down until else. And then after else, it stops. If it's still running after else, it will just print whatever's in else. Next up, we have for loops. So for loops work. For loops are used when you want to repeat certain things as long as the conditional is true, or as long as the conditional is true. It goes in hand with while loop. So for loop is usually used in a method like this, where you do for and then a variable in range and then like 3. Now what this does, so for x in, and then here is basically a set of numbers to iterate through x. And usually if you want to just iterate a certain amount of times, you will use range 3. And if you run that, you'll see it prints out the word hi 3 times. So what happens here is that range 3 will basically create a value of 1, 2, and 3. And then it'll set x to equal 1, x equals 2, and x equals 3. And so then it'll run 3 times. So if we print down hi, if we print out so 3 times. You can also iterate through an array. So if you had like an array here, it will set x to become each element in the array and then act upon it after that. So depending on the length of our array is how many times this part will run. And while we're on that topic, another loop thing is a while loop. So while loop is sort of like a for loop. Instead of iterating through a certain sequence or array, it will keep running as long as the conditional is true. So we can say while x is less than 5. Let's create the variable x first. While x is less than 5, x plus plus, and print x. And then you'll see here that so x starts at 0, and then as long as the number x is less than 5, it'll add 1 to x and print out a number. So then the first time it goes around will be 0, 0 plus 0 is less than 5, it runs in here, 0 plus equals 1, that becomes 1, and print 1 out. Then you print 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. Now why does it print 5? It's because when the x is at 4, it checks 4 is less than 5, and that's true. Then it runs here, 4 plus 1 equals 5, and it prints out 5. So it could print out 5, and that's only because the print statement comes after the incremental, where you increase x by 1. So yeah. And now we're going back to arrays. So arrays, you store them inside variables. So we can have, let's say, a variable x, and then we create an array. And arrays are created by using square brackets, and you can create an array of anything. So let's create an array of strings. We got hello, hi, and hiya. So this creates an array of 3 elements. Each of these little things inside an array is called an element, and there's 3 of them, so there's 3 elements. And now if you want to call on a specific element in the array, you will use the square bracket after your variable. So our variable is x, so you do x square bracket and then an index. And if you recall, it starts at index 0, then 1, then 2. So if we put in 2 and you run it, it'll print out hiya, because this is index 0, this is index 1, and index 2. You can also set specific elements in the array. So if we do x of 2 equals, and then we change hiya into, say, howdy, then when you run it, it'll replace the hiya in the string with howdy, and then once it prints out the second element, it'll be howdy instead of hiya. And another thing you can do with array is use them in the for loops. So if I mentioned, you can iterate them through arrays. So, oh wait. If we iterate through the array of x, we can print out every element in x. Oh wait. So it'll set y to become the first element in x, then the second element, then the third element, and so forth. So then basically it runs the entire array and grabs each element and prints it out. So hello, hi, hiya. And yeah, that's basically everything we have covered so far. And this was a refresher. So if you don't remember anything, you can look back at our previous videos or just ask any of the people here. And now I hand it over to Lucas for the activity.
Okay, so I was gonna have like you guys make like a rock paper scissors, but I don't think you guys will have time to really do that. So I'm just gonna go over the one that I made, and then I'll play some rounds. So uh all of this or most of this is like stuff that we taught. So there's some new things. So the first thing is the import. So I when you download Python, it it's like a pretty big file. It comes with a lot of libraries, and you can basically import stuff from those libraries. And random is one of them. So random doesn't come like normally like in Python. You have to import it. So what it does is it allows you to choose like integers at random, and we need random here because we want the computers to choose a random thing from rock paper scissors. We don't want it to like beat you every time or lose every time. So after I imported randoms, I made this array called options. So I had rock paper and scissors, and here's where I make the computer choose the options. So it chooses random.int 0 to 2. So remember in Python, the arrays start with 0 and then end 1 before the number. So it ends at 2. So this is index 1. This is rock is index 0, paper is index 1, and then scissors is index 2. Okay, so player equals false here. This is just how I did it. There's a couple of other ways to do it. So originally, okay, I'll just show you. Originally, I was gonna give you guys this code, and then you guys do make your own code, and then for the bonus challenge, make the game replay after a round. So you could keep playing rock paper scissors. You don't have to rerun the code. So that's what this player equals false is for. I use a while loop here, so that means this will keep looping um until you like stop it. Okay, so all of this is actually pretty simple, and there's a couple of different ways to do this. Another way that I thought of is you could use a for loop right here. You can ask the player, you use an input, like how many rounds do you want to play? And then you do a for loop that loops that many times. So that would be a way that doesn't use a while loop. Okay, so I'll just go over all of this code really quick. I think I'll probably upload this file somehow so you don't have to try to type this all out while I'm talking. So, okay, first we take the input player equals rock, paper, scissors. So this isn't the best way because it requires you to spell it exactly how uh, like the code wants you to. It has to be exactly like capitalize the first letter. But I think this is just the easiest way to do it. So if player equals computer, remember we put two equal signs because it means is equal to. You do this when you are making like a condition. So if player is equal to computer, we want to print tie. Um, like rock, paper, scissors, if we both choose rock, it's a tie. Okay, and here's where it gets a little bit more confusing. We have to go through each option. So um, there's 9 total options, and this one, player equals computer, this one gets rid of 3 of them. It gets rid of the 3 ties. So now we have to work on the other 6. So we first say that if player was rock, and then we know if player was rock, then computer can't like be rock and still like activate this code, because if computer is rock, would have already printed tie. So we only have to go through paper and scissors. I decided to go paper here like no particular reason, just because I could use the else. I know if it's not paper, it has to be scissors, because if it's not paper, it's also not rock because of the tie. So I just repeat this 3 times basically. And then I put an else code here just because like it only works if you type these 3 choices. So I put an else code, like if you didn't type one of those, that's not a valid play. Check your spelling. Okay, so this just means player was set to true, but we want it to be false, so the loop continues. So we want to keep replaying the round. So we want to set the player to false, and we want to select the computer again. So it keeps looping through, basically. Okay, so I'll play a couple rounds of this just to show you guys. All right, so you can see it says rock, paper, scissors. You can make it indent, actually. But it's I don't think it's that big of a difference. So I could type rock. Okay, so it says I win, rock smashes scissors, so we know the computer chose scissors. Okay, I'm gonna choose paper this time, and we get a tie. So this is just like this whole like activity is just to show you that like Python can be pretty fun. You can make these little games, and like this doesn't require a lot of knowledge at all. It's just there's no pictures. You're just it's just like text, but it's still pretty fun. You can play this for a little bit. Um, so actually, I think I'll copy and paste like this entire code in the chat, and then I think some of the indents will be messed up, but then I want you guys to play around with this for a little. And oops. Because I don't want you just to see it on my screen. I want you to actually like have it working on your VS Code. I don't is this too big for the chat? Okay, try that. I think can you guys copy and paste this?
Wait,
Let me try.
Lucas, can you
What?
send a file through Zoom? You know, because that's like a functionality. Like when you go to your Zoom and you go to chat, like near the right.
Oh, okay.
Can you
Yeah,
yeah,
let
can
me
you wanna
try
try
that.
that? Yeah, I've never tried it either, but it's supposed to be able to work.
Okay, I gotta find it first. Okay, I think that's better, right? Okay, I think that yeah, that works. I can because I can open it. Okay, so give you guys like 5 minutes to play around with it, and then also try to try to do the for loop thing I was talking about. So delete the while part, and then make it so um it it requires an input from the user asking how many rounds you want to play, and then it plays that many rounds. Alright, so I'll show you the solution to use a for loop instead. So this is just real quick. So I'm gonna make a rounds variable, and that's just gonna be integer input, how many rounds do you want to play, and then I just do for I in range rounds, and then I loop it this many times. So that's pretty simple. Okay, real quick, I'll show a demonstration because I didn't do the input of how it should look like with the for loop. So it's gonna ask how many rounds. I'll say 5. Then I'll just say rock 5 times. And then the difference between this and the while loop is this will like automatically end. The while loop is kind of like you're kind of stuck in the code. You have to like terminate it in order to get out. So see, I say rock 5 times and it just automatically ends. Yeah.
Alright, so very quickly, I'm going to re-show the VS Code download, in case anyone like didn't miss it or something. So, if you guys missed it, basically in the next meeting, right, in 2 weeks, we're going to be starting web development. So we're going to be needing some sort of code editor. You can use Notepad if you're comfortable with that, but it's not as good. We would recommend Visual Studio unless you have another one you like. Um, Basically go to this link to download it. I pasted it in the chat. And then choose whichever platform you're on. We're assuming you're on Windows, maybe Mac. If you don't have a computer or something, you just don't have to worry about this. Um, Click the download, right? And then it will start the download automatically. And then after the exe is downloaded, you can just open it. And then you just click I accept, next, just click next, click, and then you just click install, and it'll just start installing for you. And then also really quickly, you can always find the Python cheat sheet on our website, and this is the schedule for the next couple of meetings. We're pretty much done here, so if any of you guys have questions, you guys can stay back and ask us. Otherwise, you guys can leave now. We're pretty much done. Okay, I'm gonna end the meeting. If you guys do have questions, you can always email us or send a message or remind.